They thought they had stolen everything. 86 homes rose on land they swore was theirs. But what no one realized was that the quiet woman watching from the edge of the field had set a trap so perfect they had already lost before they began. The sun hung heavy over the rows of newly built homes, their pale walls glowing in the heat. Laughter echoed from porches, the sound of children playing blended with the steady hum of construction still finishing the last few houses. On the surface, it looked like progress, but beneath the neatly painted fences and trimmed lawns, a storm was waiting to break. She stood alone, watching. A black woman whose quiet presence is mostly overlooked, her hands folded in front of her, her eyes sharp and unyielding. The Homeowners Association had dismissed her claims, laughed off her warnings, and pushed her voice aside. They believed power meant papers, signatures, and stamps. They thought silence meant surrender. But silence was her weapon. Her name was Evelyn Grant. To her neighbors, she was simply the woman who lived quietly on the edge of town. Few knew her story. Fewer still knew what she had endured. Evelyn had once served as a military nurse, tending to soldiers whose cries of pain echoed through the desert nights. She had seen men take their last breaths under her trembling hands, had whispered prayers in sand-choked air, and had buried her own fear beneath duty. When she returned home, she carried those scars inside her chest. The land she now stood on wasn't just soil. It was her father's, her grandfather's, and her bloodline. Every tree that swayed in the wind, every stone half buried in the grass, was a piece of her family's survival. But the HOA saw none of that. To them, Evelyn was just an obstacle. They filed their permits, drew their blueprints, and one by one, homes rose where her family's fields had stretched for generations. Neighbors watched in silence, unsure, unwilling to intervene. Some shook their heads with pity, others avoided her eyes altogether. Injustice rarely arrives with shouts. It comes in quiet signatures, in bulldozers rolling before dawn. Evelyn never raised her voice. She never begged. She simply watched, her silence pressing heavier than any protest. And as the last house was painted, she moved her hand over a single folder she had kept hidden for years. Inside lay her true defense: untouched deeds, legal records, and court rulings that traced back decades. Documents no board member had ever cared to look for. The HOA had not stolen her land. They had built on it. And every nail they drove, every wall they raised, only deepened their mistake. The day came when the first homeowners received unexpected letters. A quiet ripple of confusion spread through the community. Meetings turned tense. Whispers filled the hallways. How could a single woman stand against them all? And then the truth landed like a thunderclap. Every one of those 86 houses sat on property Evelyn legally owned. The board tried to fight. They called her stubborn and unreasonable, but Evelyn's silence held more weight than their words. "Dignity is the loudest voice," she once told a neighbor who dared ask why she never shouted back. Courts moved swiftly. One by one, rulings fell in her favor. The same families who once turned away from her now stood in stunned respect as the truth became impossible to ignore. The HOA had not crushed her. They had walked straight into her trap. Evelyn never gloated. She never raised her voice in victory. She simply walked the land again, her boots pressing into the soil as if reclaiming what had always been hers. And as crowds gathered to watch the final ruling, silence fell heavy in the room. Respect replaced doubt. What they saw was not a woman defeated by power, but a woman whose patience outlasted it. Silence is not weakness, she thought. Sometimes it is the sharpest blade. Her story spread, not through headlines filled with noise, but through quiet retellings. Neighbor to neighbor, a reminder that dignity can be unshakable, and justice often walks in silence. And so the homes remained, but the land beneath them bore her name forever. Respect is not granted by titles or boards. It is earned by truth, by sacrifice, and by unshakable honor. Evelyn's silence spoke louder than any argument, and her victory proved that quiet strength can move mountains. Where are you watching from today? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe stories like Evelyn's deserve to be told, subscribe for more tales that honor silent heroes who never back down.